racing and teamwork with a we win and we lose together approach. How do you continue to work in an environment where your big boss, John Elkann, has now revealed that there is ultimately a blame culture at Ferrari?
That's a really, really good question. Trust you to throw that one at me. I mean, I don't feel like there's a blame culture here. I think, look, we're all in the same boat. Ultimately, we all have to take accountability and responsibility. Absolutely all of us, and every single one of us have to play our part. And as I was just saying just before, like, I firmly believe in the decision I made to come here. I back my team 100%, and I back myself still 100%. And whilst I know it hasn't been a good year for us, there have been so many learnings. And I think just for me personally, I feel like I've grown so much this year. I'm standing here stronger than I feel like I've ever been, and just dead set on trying to finish off strong in these last few races.
It's from John Elkann. What's your own response to that, both within the team and how you've discussed it, but equally in turning around that nightmare you spoke about that you're in post-Brazil over not just this race, but the next 3 races we've got coming up?
We've just been focused on doing our job back at the factory, so everyone's super focused on improving. And I speak to John every week, so we have an amazing relationship, and the passion has not disappeared from our team. So we've obviously got a steep hill to climb, but we want to finish off strong this year.
What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton said something before Las Vegas that absolutely no one noticed, yet it changes everything about his first season with Ferrari? Most fans think Hamilton arrives broken after Brazil, but the truth hidden inside his own words reveals a driver more focused and dangerous than at any moment in the last 5 years. I found the one sentence he delivered in private briefings that explains exactly why Las Vegas might become the turning point of his entire Ferrari project. Stay right here, because once you hear what Hamilton confessed before landing in the Nevada desert, you will never look at this weekend the same way again. Ferrari traveled to Las Vegas carrying the weight of one of its most turbulent weeks in recent memory, and Lewis Hamilton stepped into the desert with the calm focus of a driver who understands that leadership begins when the noise around you becomes impossible to ignore. Days earlier, John Elkann had issued a public message that shook the entire paddock, a message aimed directly at the Ferrari drivers after the double retirement in Brazil. While the headlines painted chaos, the truth is that Hamilton approached this moment with a clarity that only a champion with nearly 2 decades of experience can summon. He arrived in Nevada not as a man under pressure, but as a competitor sharpening his concentration for a race weekend that demanded composure above everything else. The silence inside the Las Vegas paddock on Thursday morning was striking because every team sensed that Hamilton's response would set the emotional tone of the weekend. Ferrari needed stability after a season defined by a difficult car and a series of technical setbacks, and Hamilton provided it immediately through the confidence of his words. He stated clearly that his relationship with Elkann remained strong, emphasizing that they spoke frequently and maintained trust despite the disappointment of previous results. That reassurance mattered deeply, because the team had to feel unity before facing the extreme conditions expected on this cold Nevada asphalt. Hamilton's arrival was also marked by a remarkable discipline that contrasted sharply with the volatility surrounding Ferrari. He made no attempt to deflect responsibility, no attempt to engage in public confrontation, and no attempt to shift blame onto engineers or strategy groups. Instead, he highlighted the collective strength of the factory in Maranello, reminding everyone that progress in Formula One does not come from isolated brilliance but from long-term cohesion. His focus on the project rather than the crisis offered a stability that Ferrari desperately needed after a year dominated by technical limitations of the SF25. The deeper layer of Hamilton's mindset became clear when he described how the season had consumed his thoughts. He revealed that he woke up thinking about Ferrari, went to sleep thinking about Ferrari, and even dreamt about finding solutions to the challenges that continued to hold the team back. That level of immersion communicates far more than any public statement of commitment. It shows a driver who understands that rebuilding a legendary team requires patience, constant communication, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. No champion reaches greatness without enduring seasons like this, and Hamilton framed the adversity as a necessary part of the journey toward future success. As he walked the paddock and inspected the circuit during the track familiarization laps, he carried himself with a confidence that had little to do with recent results and everything to do with preparation. The Las Vegas circuit presents a unique challenge due to its cold temperatures, smooth surface, and long straights that rapidly drain tire energy, yet Hamilton's history in similar conditions gave Ferrari a source of optimism. The team knew that if there were a driver capable of extracting performance from a car that struggled to maintain tire temperature, it was Hamilton, whose feel for grip variation remains one of the strongest in the sport. That gave his arrival an aura of quiet possibility that contrasted with the uncertainty surrounding the rest of the field. His final interviews before stepping into engineering briefings added one more layer to the story. He acknowledged the difficulties openly, recognized the limitations of the SF25, and refused to hide from the reality that podiums had slipped away far too often. Yet he also expressed a belief that the team's unity and their relentless work during the final stretch of the season would help them approach the weekend with purpose rather than resignation. Hamilton did not speak as a driver hoping for luck. He spoke as a leader preparing a group of people for the challenge of proving that adversity cannot break a team that remains committed to its long-term vision. And in that conviction, Las Vegas began to feel like more than a race. It felt like an opportunity for redemption born from the voice of a champion. Ferrari entered Las Vegas carrying a structural problem that went far beyond the emotional impact of the words spoken by John Elkann during the week. The team was forced to confront a car concept that had resisted every attempt at refinement, a machine whose behavior remained unstable whenever the ride height shifted even a fraction from its optimal window. Hamilton understood this better than anyone, because he had spent the entire season studying how the SF25 responded to the smallest changes in track temperature and aerodynamic load. The issue confronting Ferrari was not a matter of attitude or discipline. It was a matter of physics, engineering, and a concept that had become too fragile to exploit consistently. What made the situation even more complex was the timing. With only a few races remaining, Ferrari had already halted development of the SF25 months earlier, meaning Hamilton would face Las Vegas with exactly the same limitations that had cost him results throughout the summer. He spoke openly about this reality in his briefings, explaining that the car required a precision that left no margin for error, especially on a circuit with long straights that caused the tires to cool almost instantly. For a driver known for extracting performance in extreme conditions, this was a challenge that demanded both mastery and patience. Yet Hamilton never framed it as a burden. Instead, he treated it as a responsibility to guide the team through a weekend where execution mattered more than raw pace. Inside the engineering room, the core of the problem became even clearer. The skid block sensitivity that had led to his disqualification in China earlier in the season forced Ferrari to operate the car at a compromised height, sacrificing aerodynamic efficiency simply to avoid another regulatory breach. This produced a chain reaction. Less downforce meant more sliding. More sliding meant colder tires. Colder tires meant weaker turn-in on a circuit where the corners already felt like polished glass. Hamilton analyzed this loop carefully, pointing out that the team needed to create a stable operating zone rather than pushing the limits of theoretical performance. His approach reflected the maturity of a champion who sees beyond the symptoms and focuses on the root cause. The tension grew because Ferrari knew the conditions in Las Vegas would punish any imbalance. Temperatures near 10 degrees Celsius reduce energy transfer in the tires to a point where the grip can collapse from one corner to the next, and engineers explained that a car like the SF25 could lose time not gradually but suddenly, as if a switch had been flipped. Hamilton prepared for this scenario by reviewing his data from circuits with similar thermal behavior, and he highlighted during his meetings that the team needed to anticipate these shifts rather than react to them. He viewed the cold not as an obstacle but as an environment he could exploit if the car remained predictable. However, predictability was exactly what Ferrari struggled to deliver. The suspension concept, which had been redesigned for the season with the intention of unlocking aerodynamic potential, had proven too conservative in some areas and too restrictive in others, creating a platform that sank into instability whenever the load profile changed at high speed. Hamilton acknowledged that this was not something the team could fix overnight, yet his tone never slipped into resignation. He reminded the engineers that a driver can still manage an uncooperative machine if the communication remains precise and the objectives remain realistic. This message resonated strongly throughout the garage because it restored a sense of direction during a moment when doubt could have easily taken over. And in the middle of this technical storm, Hamilton delivered a quiet but powerful challenge to everyone following the team. He explained that understanding the real problem was essential before making any judgment about his performance or the state of Ferrari. Formula One rewards context, not surface-level conclusions. Hamilton asked fans to think beyond the standings and look at the structural issues that shaped each race weekend. So here va la pregunta directa para vosotros, integrada como par del valor. If you had been on the Ferrari wall during these final races, knowing the car carried these limitations, would you have pushed for a more aggressive setup, or would you have prioritized stability over ambition? Your perspective matters, because it reveals how differently each of us interprets risk in the most demanding sport in the world. Ferrari arrived in Las Vegas knowing that the only way to survive a weekend with temperatures near freezing was through engineering discipline pushed to the absolute limit. The SF25 required a configuration that balanced aerodynamic stability with tire preservation, yet every adjustment carried a consequence that had to be evaluated with microscopic precision. Hamilton stepped into this challenge with the analytical calm that has defined his greatest seasons, bringing not only his driving experience but also his profound understanding of how a modern ground effect car behaves when the aero platform loses energy. Engineers described Las Vegas as a circuit where the tires cool faster than the car can warm them, and Hamilton recognized that this phenomenon would expose even the smallest mechanical weakness in the Ferrari package. One of the central engineering debates revolved around the choice of tire preparation strategy for qualifying. The cold desert air would allow only a narrow margin for bringing the soft compound into its ideal range, and any miscalculation would lead to immediate graining that could ruin a lap before it even began. Hamilton reviewed the data with the tire group and proposed a measured approach centered on creating a progressive ramp of surface temperature rather than a sudden spike that could tear the rubber apart. His experience in circuits such as Sao Paulo and Shanghai, where he had already warned the team earlier in the year about temperature deficits, gave weight to his analysis. The engineers appreciated this clarity because it helped refine the simulation models for the weekend. Another key point in the engineering discussions involved the aerodynamic load distribution along the chassis. Due to the sensitivity of the SF25 to small ride height deviations, Ferrari needed to find a compromise that kept the car stable through the long straights while preventing excessive floor strikes on the bumps that appear late in the lap. Hamilton contributed directly by describing the sensations he expected to feel during the transition from the fast sections into the braking zones, particularly in the final third of the circuit where the surface becomes smoother but the tire energy drops sharply. His capacity to communicate small differences in vertical load gave Ferrari the chance to create a setup that preserved confidence in directional changes, which was essential for protecting the tires from cold-induced understeer. The braking stability of the car also became a priority because carbon temperatures in low ambient conditions tend to fall below ideal operating windows. Ferrari examined several strategies to maintain heat, including adjustments to brake ducts and fine-tuning of the energy recovery mapping. Hamilton's input focused on achieving a balance that would avoid locking the front axle in slow corners, which is a common problem when brakes and tires lose heat simultaneously. His guidance helped the engineers create an integrated thermal plan that treated brakes and tires as a single system rather than two separate components. That unified perspective is one of the reasons Hamilton is valued so highly within the team, as it transforms isolated engineering solutions into coordinated performance gains. Electrical deployment strategy became another critical layer of analysis. Las Vegas features extended periods of full throttle where the hybrid unit must deliver linear acceleration while still preserving energy for defensive and offensive maneuvers. Hamilton insisted on a mapping that allowed predictable power delivery through the apex, avoiding sudden surges that could destabilize the rear in cold conditions. The aim was not to chase outright top speed but to maintain consistent traction, especially during the first half of the race when the track surface would remain at its coldest. His ability to predict how the energy profile would evolve through the night sessions gave Ferrari a framework for configuring the hybrid system in a way that minimized risk without sacrificing essential performance. As the final technical briefing ended, Hamilton reminded the group that engineering excellence does not come from the pursuit of perfection but from the removal of unnecessary variables. He encouraged Ferrari to focus on controllable elements rather than chasing miracles from a car that had already revealed its structural limits across the season. The team responded with a renewed sense of direction because they understood that this approach would maximize their competitive window in a weekend defined by unpredictability. And here emerges the question for you, because your perspective shapes the intent behind every strategic decision in this sport. If you were responsible for defining the setup of a car that struggles to generate tire temperature, would you pursue a layout that sacrifices speed for stability, or would you risk a more aggressive balance in search of a breakthrough lap? Your reasoning reveals how deeply you connect with the engineering side of Formula One, the side that often decides races long before the lights go out.